Hi, I'm Rob DeMarco, special correspondent for BTV. I've been researching addiction for several months, and now my continuing quest took me to California. There I was able to interview Mary Helen Beatificato, the CEO of Morningside Recovery Center, and Dr. Elizabeth Waterman, one of the center's psychologists. Enjoy. How many years has your program been around?
10 years.
10?
We just actually celebrated this year our 10th year.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
It is, especially when you look at the number of lives that we've touched in those 10 years.
What makes your treatment center so successful?
One of the biggest things that we do is we develop an individualized approach for each client. I think each client feels special and they feel like the treatment program is designed for them and their specific problems. I also think it's our terrific staff. We have a wonderful clinical staff, we have a wonderful administration and support staff to match.
I'll just go to add to that. I absolutely agree with Dr. Waterman that it is our individualized approach. We basically, the reason Morningside was started in the first place was because a family had addiction that was basically a problem in their family. And so they started Morningside Recovery. And we have realized that because a lot of the staff that works here has gone through recovery as well, they're in recovery, that no one treatment, model treatment plan is perfect for everybody. And so rather than say you don't fit within that and you need to do A, B, C, and D, and if you don't, then you need to leave the program, we realize that that process and that plan is going to be different for every individual. And so Morningside really is different in the sense that they will meet the client where they're at and take away every excuse that that client has for why they haven't gotten help or been successful in their recovery pursuit. The other thing I think that sets us apart is that a lot of clients who enter treatment go to what we call like a lockdown facility, where they go into treatment for 30 days and it's more of like an institutionalized or hospital type setting. And all of the things that would make a client relapse, the temptations, if you will, are taken away from them. So they don't have to worry about that during their 30 days. The problem is that when the client leaves those 30 days of treatment, they go back to what real life is about, and all of those temptations exist, and there's nobody there to support that client. And so you have a great rate of relapse. So Morningside Recovery believes that the clients need to have more of those freedoms so that treatment here mirrors more of what real life looks like. And then we have the staff and the support in place and the structure so that as the clients face those temptations and those freedoms, we can be there to keep them on the right path, and if they fall, to catch them when they fall. And I think that's truly what sets us apart. Treatment is about coming to treatment and getting the help, but truly what matters is, what is the rest of your life going to be like? What happens when you leave here at Morningside is probably really what our goal is. We want to make sure that, not that you were okay during your 30, 60, or 90 days while you were here, but that you go back into your life and you have the tools that are necessary to continue and maintain that sobriety.
When an addict enters the treatment program, how long is the process? Do you have a particular, is it 30 days, 60 days, 90? How many days would they be in treatment for?
It can range anywhere from 30 days to even 6 months or longer, depending on what the client needs. It really is designed based on what each person needs when they come in through these doors.
That's great.
Just to elaborate on that, part of it is you can have a client who goes to what we call like a primary treatment center, and so they may attend another treatment setting in that hospital, lockdown, institutionalized type setting. So when they come to Morningside, they're going to be further along in their recovery process. And so I think what Dr. Waterman was referring to is for that particular client, they may not need to be here for 6 months because they already have a good solid 30 days under their belt. Somebody else may have been at a treatment center even longer than that, and so when they come to us, they're just looking for us to be the sort of transitional phase between that institutionalized setting and their life back at home. and so maybe they stay here and work or go back to school, and so they may be here 30 days to do that. It really does depend on what the client needs, and we offer all of those different programs.
Have you found that sometimes when people come to seek treatment, maybe they've been in other treatment programs and it just hasn't worked because it's always been kind of like you were saying, your basic deal where this is how it is, take it or leave it. You know what I mean? With this is the plan, this is how it works, and this is what the deal is.
Absolutely. Dr. Waterman could probably speak on this more on a personal level because she talks with these clients, but clients who have a substance abuse problem and even a mental or emotional illness will find every excuse not to get help. It's just the nature of what it is. So when they go to a treatment program who gives them this plan and says you have to do these things, they will find a way to basically set themselves up to fail and to not be able to, because when they don't, the program says you need to leave. And they've basically accomplished what they wanted, which was they didn't want to go to treatment in the first place. Maybe it was a family member who kind of pushed them into treatment. At Morningside, that's what we do, is take those excuses away and work with the client so they can't really say, wow, I didn't follow the program and kicked out. No, we're going to work with you because we want you to be successful.
Yes, and what she's talking about is rolling with the resistance. When it comes to addiction, there's a lot of ambivalence that goes along with it. Do I give it up? Do I not give it up? There's pros and cons of giving it up. So people come in with a lot of resistance to treatment and a lot of resistance to getting better. And so what we do is we try to roll with that resistance and set up a program that works best for them.
Right.
Once a person leaves Morningside, what are the options of them for having a support system in case they fall?
All of those things would be addressed in like a discharge plan, which every client gets. And so Dr. Waterman, if you want to elaborate on what that discharge plan looks like. So you have a client, maybe take us through, you have a client that's getting ready to discharge and go back to their life. What would we help them set up?
Sure. Depending on what the client wants, we typically recommend that they step down to a more transitional type living situation, which is usually like a sober living, where there are things to hold them accountable, meaning drug tests, curfews, structure. We don't necessarily want people to leave here, which is a rather highly structured environment, and just go back into no structure. That does not set them up for success. We typically look at sober livings as a transitional housing situation for people once they live here. And we do recommend that most clients go there. Also, intensive outpatient programs. We like to have our clients attend intensive outpatient programs once they leave here, which is more than just a once a week visit with a therapist. It is actually a program designed to help people transition from a more structured program for addiction to their own life outside of here. Another thing we do is set people up with outside therapists. We transition people to other psychiatrists if they are not going to be in our area. We look for support networks in terms of AA, NA meetings so that people can attend them. We also look for different programs that people would like to start. For example, clients who want to become culinary experts. We look for programs in the area to help them get into school, transition them into the school program. Is there anything else?
No, I think that's about it. The biggest thing I think what Dr. Waterman's getting at is that we don't just say, thank you, you've graduated from Morningside, have a nice life and check in with us, once in a while. It's more of what is it going to be like when you go back home? Let's kind of role play that and see. So this is going to be the psychiatrist that you're going to go to? Great. Our discharge planning department would actually meet with that client and actually set up a 2-week follow-up appointment so that they already have it. They don't need to go back home, remember to schedule it, because sometimes those things don't happen.
Yeah.
And so we basically give the client a very clear checklist plan, if you will, so that they, again, have more of the tools necessary to continue with their sobriety.
Do you see a rise in people using, rather than traditional drugs, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, drugs that were big from the 50s to maybe the 80s or 90s, do you see a rise in people using prescription drugs?
Absolutely.
Yes.
There was a commercial recently, I don't know if you've seen it on the TV, but there's a drug dealer, and he's sitting outside of this liquor store, and he's like, and you see him, and he's just constantly looking, and he's like, where are they? Where are they? And then you basically see another scene where there's footage of the medicine cabinet and the kid going through their parents' medicine cabinet to get the prescription bottles. And obviously the message is that normally it would be the drug dealers who were making the money on the street drugs, if you will. And now these prescription drugs, something that before we didn't think was so much of an issue, because it's on the rise, that's where all of the drug dealers' clients are.
What do you think about the deaths of many celebrities that we've seen in recent years and in the past? Some being Marilyn Monroe, we've gotten Amy Winehouse recently, and then Heath Ledger. What do you think about the deaths of the celebrities? Will that send a message to the public, or will that have no effect?
Well, I think first of all, the deaths are tragic and very unfortunate. And I hope, yes, it does send a message to the public that addiction can kill you if it's not treated. And I think, unfortunately, celebrities, they are human and they suffer from the same weaknesses that other people do. It's just they're in the spotlight more. And I think they suffer from addiction because the same reason other people do, which is they lack a certain set of skills to deal effectively with the pressures in their lives. I don't think they're exempt, but I do think their lives and their stories can hopefully influence others to get help before it's too late.
Yeah, I see two things that come out of those. One is awareness, is people realizing that, like we were speaking about earlier, just because you have a prescription bottle that has your name on it doesn't mean that what you're doing with those pills and that prescription are good for you or are appropriate. You can still have a problem. And so I think it's raising awareness that people need to know about that. I think the other thing that it does is you begin to see that celebrities, because of their resources, have more people around them that tend to enable their behavior. And so one of the things that I think is so great about Morningside is that we have a family program. And Dr. Kenneth Perlmutter is the one that heads that family program. And what it enables the family to do, because that family program can go on even if we don't have the participation of the client. So for example, say the client says, I'm not willing to meet with my mom and my dad and my siblings to do like a group therapy session, family session. It enables the family to see what their role in that addiction is. Every one of us who has a loved one who suffers from a substance abuse problem or even a mental illness, we play a role in that whole process, and our family program enables the family members to see exactly what their role is.
That's interesting, because some people don't think they have any, they don't have any reason to be in this deal. That it's all the addict and they didn't do anything.
Right.
Correct.
Where we're all in the game and we all have a part. Whether we like it or not, we are in this, and we need to examine what has been our part in it.
That's right.
Exactly, for the purpose of, we can't control the behavior of other people, and so we can't control what the addict is going to do, whether they're going to relapse, or not stay sober. But we can control what we do and those actions, and so the family program helps the family members examine that and then gives them the tools to make the necessary changes that they need to.
Do you think that addicts feel that there's a stigma in terms of if they go get help? Do you feel like they would be they feel that there's a label to it, or?
I think there is a stigma, and I think it does negatively affect an addict's willingness to receive treatment. Do I think it's the number one factor that prevents them from seeking treatment? No.
Mm-hmm.
I think the number one factor is they have not decided that their life is so unmanageable that they are ready to get treatment. I think when they finally decide that their life is out of control and they can no longer manage it, I think that's when they come. But until they hit that point, I think it's very hard for them to seek treatment.
So it's basically just hitting the bottom rather than saying, oh, there's a stigma with addiction?
I think actually, yes, hitting their bottom is the number one factor. If they don't hit what they consider to be their bottom, I think they're unlikely to seek treatment at that time, or unlikely to be really invested in treatment. Okay, I do think that there is a negative stigma,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it's the number one factor.
When you say hit their bottom, it would be that literally they hit their bottom, or in the case of like interventions, the bottom is brought to them. So one of the reasons when you talk about an addict who is sort of a functioning addict, where it doesn't interfere with their day-to-day lives and they can still hold down their job and, you know, keep some semblance of their family and keep it together, that it's the loved ones who finally come forward and say, okay, I'm not going to wait around for the bottom, for you to hit the bottom and get the phone call that you've had the DUI or you're in jail or you've lost your job, but I'm going to bring the bottom to you and I'm going to tell you that this can't continue to go on. And I think it's either one of those two things that finally brings that addict to treatment.
Well, that takes a lot of guts if your friends or your family is willing to, you know, come right at you and say, listen, you got a problem and you got to deal with it, whether you think it or not. There's something going on here. This isn't just a social deal or just you going out and having a good time.
Right. It does. It takes a lot of courage, and I think what ends up happening is as those individuals seek treatment, because that's a lot of times what happens, they learn to see what their role in the whole process is, and they realize that they have a lot more power over their situation than they thought they did. Life doesn't end. One of the things that I see here every day, not only from the staff that is in recovery themselves, is that many of them are, their life is as happy as it can be. Like, their life didn't end with them entering recovery.
Do you feel that with the old saying that, well, it's been around for years, that marijuana is a gateway drug, do you believe that, or do you have a different opinion?
I don't know that it's the gateway drug. I think if somebody is willing to experiment with one kind of drug, they are more likely to experiment with other types of drugs, therefore increasing the chances of becoming addicted.
What do you? So both of you feel that way, or is it?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Waterman. I think that people like to say, oh, once they start that, they're going to start other drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I know quite a few people who have a problem with marijuana, and literally it starts and stops with marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
They have never progressed onto other drugs. And it seems to be that in our society, marijuana seems to be a little bit more accepting.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't necessarily have the stigma that it's attached with marijuana use as you do with some of the other drugs. And so it's just seems more acceptable. But again, I agree with Dr. Waterman that once they start taking it, it's, wow, I use that drug and my life hasn't become unmanageable because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the greater chance that you will then progress on to trying another drug.
You know what it probably is? It's like that old saying, oh, it's just experimentation, just kids being kids or whatever, they're having a good time. You know, it's okay. We're having a hit off of a marijuana joint or whatever. You know, that's not going to mean anything. It's not going to do anything. You know, but in hindsight, you know, for most people, you know, it probably would.
And it really goes along with the family values. If a family says it's okay to smoke, the child is more likely to smoke. If the family says it's okay to drink excessively, the child is more likely to drink excessively. Where you see one substance being used, it's more likely that another substance is being used as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it goes back to if somebody's more willing to try one substance, they might be more willing to try another, and then another, until they find one that they get hooked on.
Mm-hmm. What do you feel about the anti-drug message? Has it been effective? Because it started in the 70s with, you know, Nixon and everything, and now we're coming into this new age where it's continuing. Do you feel it's been effective, or?
I think no, and not for today. And let me explain a little bit. The message that I got when I was in school, and the message that seems to continue today, is about your cocaine, your heroin, your hard drugs. What we see a lot of here at Morningside Recovery is things like prescription drug abuse, and even more so, stuff like spice, bath salts. So there is so much accessibility to other things, which today's generation is now using and abusing, that there's really a lack of education. And I think there's a lack of education on the part of parents as well. Parents who don't know what to look for, don't realize that their own medicine cabinets pose a danger to their children. They don't have these things locked up. Again, it's just, I think it's just a lack of knowledge. And I think that's really the message that we need to get out there, not don't use, cocaine and heroin. I think the message needs to be changed for the changing times.
That's actually profound and a great insight, and that's very relevant. I mean, parents were more concerned about their kids drinking Drano or something, but now when they get to an age where they think their child has all the tools and is somewhat of an adult that they're not going to get into trouble and stuff, that's when the real trouble starts.
Exactly, and it's again goes to the lack of education. One of the things that Morningside is recently talked about, and we're actually in the plan of the process of implementing, is a series of educational workshops that we're going to offer free to the community so that we can educate parents. The kind of thing that's been thrown around is really leveling the playing field for parents and children. Our children, I have a teenager, our children know more than we do about drugs and alcohol. It's time that we as parents level that playing field and we get the knowledge and the education so that we know what our children are doing. We are aware of the dangers that basically they're presented with, and that we assist them so that they don't become future clients of Morningside. The anti-drug message that has been sent in the past, the one that most of us got when we were going through school, is out of date. It's out of date for the times that we're in, and I'd like to see that updated. And part of updating that is equipping parents with the knowledge and the tools so that they can be more active in their kids' life and know what they should be looking for. Because a lot of these parents don't know. They don't know that the bath salts that they have in their house poses a danger if their children were to get them and use them. We're seeing an increase in the number of people in their 18, early 20s who are using and abusing these bath salts. And so it's because parents just don't have any clue. And I'd like to see, and Morningside's working on putting in a program in place, a free program, as something to give back to the community in order to equip these parents with that knowledge. There is no list of things that everything on this universal list is what you need to watch for, because these are the only things that are a danger to your kid. Children, just like the clients we see here at Morningside, are creative. When you have this addiction problem, you will use anything that will, if taken in sufficient quantities, will give you that high that you desire. We've seen it from anything to what we call whippets, the people who use the aerosol cans, sort of like for the whipped cream that you just find in your grocery store that mom probably has in her refrigerator, because they will get a high off using that. We have seen cigarette lighters that disappear because people are inhaling the butane that's in the cigarette lighters. Ingesting large amounts of laxatives in the grocery stores, when they visit the grocery stores, literally pulling them off the shelves and ingesting them, because literally almost anything that exists in our society, when taken in the wrong way or in greater quantities than you should ingest, can give you that high, and that's what these children and these clients are desiring.
Wow.
Nothing is safe.
They're very resourceful.
That's heavy. I didn't know that about how people will go in there and just start taking laxatives and just pop them in, and I mean, I knew about the aerosol cans and things like that, and I've heard mouthwash and things, but I never knew what the lengths of what kids would go to.
Any length, and parents need to be prepared for that. Family members, they need to know what to look for. It's literally the hand sanitizer. I mean, anything. The things that we have tons of in our homes. This is why parents need to be educated. Kids know more than we do. There was a big push for a long time about just sex education. And the message was, parents, you need to educate your kids about this, because if you don't talk to them, their friends will. The same thing can be said about drugs. Your children, I guarantee you right now, your children know more about drugs than you do. For the most average parent, our children know more. That's why we need to learn. We need to know so that we know what to look for, and we know to be able to open up that conversation with our kids. As a parent myself, one of the things that I fear is not so much the message and telling your children that this is not acceptable, you need to be careful, these are the things that can happen to you, is we need to be able to equip kids with more than just saying no. In today's day, it's hard to just say no. We need to accept that and give our kids something more than that. Here's one, and I'm not saying from a clinical perspective, I'd probably maybe get Dr. Waterman's opinion on this, is whether this is a good idea, but I thought it was interesting. I have a parent who came to me recently and said, I recognize that it's very hard for our children to say no. She has a teenager, and so she basically has decided that she is drug testing her teenager. She started at the age of 12, even well before she thought that her child would be involved in drugs. And the reason she did it is because she wanted her child to be able to say to whatever friend ever happened to say, hey, why don't you try this, is my mother drug tests me every other day. You don't understand. I can't just take one hit off of that, or it can't just be this one time. But she's literally provided, and again, clinically, I don't know if that's the best idea, but what I would say is she's given her child something to be able to, other than no, and the friends come back with, I mean, come on, what, you're not cool, that sort of thing. She's like, he can blame it on he has a psycho mother. And I'm okay with that. If I have to be labeled as a psycho mother in order for my child to resist that temptation, I'm okay with that.
And the intent, I would say, the intent of the mother is terrific. I mean, that's what we want. We want parents to help their kids, and if the parents are willing to take the fall for the kid, that's awesome. It shows how much the parent loves and is devoted to the child. Would I suggest that parents go ahead and drug test their child when there is absolutely no suspicion that they are involved in substances? Yeah, it might be going a little too far, but I do appreciate the intent. I think it's a wonderful bond that mother has with it.
And that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see our community do something to come up with innovative ways. I don't know all the answers, but I'm sure some great minds, putting them together, that we can come up with something so that we can give our children the tools, not just say no.
And there are a lot of tools out there. I know that goes beyond the scope of this conversation, but there are a variety of techniques that parents can teach their children in how to handle these types of situations.
Well, elaborate on that. How can a parent equip their child with the tools to handle any sticky situation that they can get in?
Sounds like it's dialogue, and it's the conversations that you have with your children.
It is, and teaching your child to use a variety of techniques to sort of either divert the situation or get help as needed. Teaching them, hey, pick up the phone and call me, or text me, or say, oh, I think, my phone's ringing, or something like that, or saying, I don't think I'm going to do that right now, and I don't think it sounds like a good idea for me. Really teaching them how to say no in a different way. It's not even just saying no, also how to ask for help. Okay, self-confidence also comes into it. Kids that have a strong sense of, confidence in themselves and a good peer group are not going to have a very hard time saying, yeah, that's not for me, because they're going to have support around them. They know that they're not going to be rejected by the people that they really care about if they say no to this. So it's teaching them self-confidence, self-worth, giving them some outs, like some dialogue, things to say when they encounter those situations. Those things can really help a child.
We need to, as parents, we'd be doing a disservice to our children if we just believed that they weren't capable of doing things. We need to take those extra precautions. I mean, most parents, hopefully most, I know I can speak for myself when I say this, is, as having a teenager, the texting on the cell phone, I've had to put precautions. I hope that my child, wouldn't do those things, but just in case, I'm going to make sure that I'm staying in the loop and that I'm aware of those things so that I can give the help if help is needed.
This is a topic I feel very strongly about, and it was a pleasure coming here and doing this. I mean, I would have flown 18 hours if I had to. I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you very much. I have to say that I want to thank you as well, because we here at Morningside Recovery, we can only do so much, but part of helping fight this addiction, drug abuse, alcoholism, is raising awareness. And so what you're doing to raise awareness not only about the problem, but the solution, about what they can do to go and get help and what that looks like, is awesome. So thank you so much for doing that.